This quick tour shows you the basic steps to design and carry out an experiment. Experimental design is about how to set up an observational study. In Setup, Observe and Analyze, you can see how an example study is carried out in the Observer XT. This chapter shows you how to design a coding scheme and identify, choose and determine the experimental conditions. Let's suppose you want to investigate how the presence of a parent influences the self-confidence of a child. We expect that this will show in the behaviour of the child, in the degree of seeking support from the adult supervisor in the room, and in the way he or she plays with toys and behaves towards another child. We'll use this video to list which behaviours occur, which may have significance for our research hypothesis. The supervisor in the room is Mike's parent. Mike is the child on the left. The behaviours of Mike are observed first. Now the video is replayed to observe the right-hand child, who is Tom. You need to make groups of the behaviours that you want to score. The following diagram shows you how to make logical groups. The behaviours that were observed are shown here on a horizontal time axis. At the start of the video, Mike was looking at the target object while reaching for the object. After that, he handled the object while still looking at it. Then Mike switched to looking at the adult in the room. And so on. Looking behaviours follow after each other and can be placed in one row. For Tom's looking behaviours, likewise. The handle object behaviours can also be placed in a row. The row for handle object behaviours of Mike show a gap. In this period, he did not handle an object. To make sure that at any point in time one behaviour of the group occurs, we need to define a behaviour for this event. We can, for instance, call it no action. Now we have the basis for the coding scheme. You can see two subjects, in this observation Mike and Tom. Both subjects show behaviours from two groups, look and handle. Groups are non-exclusive. They do not exclude each other, which means that a subject shows a looking behaviour and at the same time a handling behaviour. By contrast, behaviours within a group are exclusive. That means that they cannot occur at the same time. For instance, a subject cannot at the same time look at the adult and at the target object. A group is made exhaustive, which means that at any one point in time, one behaviour from that group is active, and there are no gaps in the rows. The huge advantage of an exhausted behaviour group is that you only need to score when a subject changes its behaviour. By definition, the previous behaviour in the group is ended and its duration is set. For instance, the moment that you score that Mike starts handling an object, then by definition, the period of no action has ended. In this way, you can easily score the durations of behaviours. Durations give much more insight than just the number of occurrences, and can justify more solid conclusions. The goal of this sample experiment is to determine if the presence of a parent in the room has effect on the behaviours of a child associated with self-confidence. To be able to prove this statistically, we need to record experimental conditions with each observation, so that grouping data for each condition is possible. For example, we would like to compare the behaviour of children whose parents are in the room with that of children whose parents are absent. That is, the adult in the room is not their parent. Then we will define the experimental condition, or independent variable, parent present, with possible values yes and no. Grouping the observational data accordingly will make a statistical comparison possible. Maybe we'd also like to form age groups, and therefore we can have an independent variable, age, with possible values of the number of years. And the independent variable rater is defined to be able to prove statistically that there is no difference resulting from who is scoring. This movie shows you how to walk through the setup of your experiment. The Observer XT helps you with all the steps needed to set up your project. You start by creating a new project. Proceed with the next step, Project Setup. You can select whether you want to score your data offline or to score live. You can score live and simultaneously record video to be able to refine your observations later on. In this tutorial, we will use offline scoring from pre-recorded video files. The next step is to fill in your coding scheme. Optionally, you can define the subject you're going to observe. Here, one behavioural group has been entered already. The second group is added now. We'll add a new group. It is mutually exclusive, so that we don't need to score stop codes. The behaviour in the first row will be the initial state behaviour. This behaviour will be the starting behaviour for its behavioural group when you start your observation. You can score with your keyboard. Each element in the coding scheme automatically gets a key code, which you can change. This group only has state event behaviours, but you can also define behaviours of the type point event. Modifiers can refine your coding scheme. The next step is to define independent variables. Here we add the user-defined independent variable parent present with a description. This variable is of the type logical, with allowed values yes and no. Now you can see all the independent variables defined. Parent present of type logical and predefined values yes and no. Age of type numerical in years, which allows you to form age group. Rater, to be able to prove that it made no difference who scored the data. And the name of the children to connect their data to their ID. Now you are ready to acquire observational data. Here we will show how scoring from video works in the Observer. Select the video file you want to observe. Start recording by clicking the button. Fill in the values for the independent variables. And start scoring the behaviours that you observe. Here you see the key codes that you defined in the coding scheme. Pressing keys is more effective for efficient coding. But as shown here, you may also click on the name to score. The score is logged with a timestamp. Here you can see that this video has been completely scored. You can scroll the video, or click in the event log to examine the scores. The video and event log are synchronized. Click the button on the lower right to proceed to the next step. You can see the observation you've just made in the Project Explorer. Now we move forward to when several observations have been made. The next step is to analyze the data. Analyzing data has 3 steps: plot the data, select the data, and then analyze it. For a first impression, click Visualize Data to inspect your raw data. In the time diagram, you see which behaviours occurred when for each child. This gives you an impression of the structure of the behaviour. The synchronization with the video images provides a good overview and insight into exactly what happened in a certain period. To proceed, click on the lower right button. To focus on a specific research question, you can make a selection of your data. To do this, you can build a data profile in a visually intuitive way. In this example, we want to analyze only the events of the type Look at Adult. By default, all data are selected. You can make the selection as complex as you like by combining nested filters with an AND condition or by combining them with OR conditions. Here we add one filter. With this filter, we select all scores of the behaviour Look at Adult. With this button, you can always change the filter. This container shows the content of your selection. You can use this data profile with both analysis and visualization to get the results on just the data selected with that profile. To proceed, click on the lower button. Data profiles are saved and can be used repeatedly. To visualize and/or analyze data. The results of the behavioral analysis are presented in a table. You can define its layout to enable an export and subsequent analysis in, for instance, Excel or SPSS. Select or deselect elements and display them on the rows, the columns, or on separate sheets. This table shows the results of the only behaviour used in the data profile, Look at Adult. You can see the total number of occurrences, the mean, the rate per minute, and the percentage time spent. Not all of the available statistics are shown here. You can also select these calculations. If you want to test the influence of experimental conditions like age, or the presence of a parent, or the rater, then you need to export the results for further analysis to statistical packages like SPSS, or SAS, or Statistica. You can export to an XLS, XML, or an ASCII file. In addition to the behavior analysis shown, the observer can provide numerical analysis specific for numerical scales, lag sequential analysis to reveal orders in behaviors, and reliability analysis. Normally you inspect your raw data by means of time event plots, but you can also create a graphical output of your statistics. For example, you can visualize the total duration of the scored events as a pie chart. The Observer XT offers 4 types of charts: columns, lines, pies, and scatter plots. To make a chart, first run the analysis you require so that the result table is opened on your screen. In this example, we want to compare different types of play. Make sure that the screen shows the statistics you want to plot. If necessary, click the Layout button to change the table layout. Select the data that you want to plot. Use the Control key to select non-adjacent groups of cells, and click the Charts button to select the type of chart you prefer. You can edit a chart in various ways. Click Select Data to add or remove data series from your chart. Click Format to change the layout of the charts, like titles and scale and color. You can also save the chart within the Observer and export it to other programs. In the last chapters of this tutorial, we've chosen 3 additional functions to show you: using a handheld observation system, incorporating instantaneous sampling, and how to use the find function. Imagine customers choosing products from shelves, and you need to follow them around to code their selection behavior. In situations where you need to be mobile, you can score behaviors with Pocket Observer, our observational software for handheld computers. When working outside, you may prefer a rugged handheld computer. This is the workflow for mobile observations. You first design your coding scheme in the Observer on your desktop or notebook computer. Mind that you give the elements names with no more than 8 characters. The screen size of a handheld is rather small. Next, connect the handheld and send over your coding scheme by selecting File, Pocket Observer, Export Setup File. Now you're ready to go out and observe live. If you feel that an element is missing in the coding scheme, then click on this button and add it. And here it is. For easier reading, so more reliable coding, you can enlarge the font sizes. Tap Menu and then Preferences, and open the Display tab. You can drag the blue bar to change the size of the codes area. Do your data analysis in the Observer XT on your personal computer. To import the observational data from your handheld, you connect it. And then you open the Observer XT, and from the File menu select Pocket Observer and then Import Observations. You can proceed just like in any other Observer project to visualize and analyze the data. Instantaneous sampling is an observation method in which you record the behavior of each individual at regular time intervals. It is also called time, scan, or interval sampling. Usually you choose this method when continuous sampling is not practical, for instance when you need to observe many subjects for a longer period of time. In this case we will study one teacher and a group of children in a video observation. Of course you can also observe live without video. To select the observation method, open Project Setup. We selected to combine continuous and instantaneous sampling because we want to score the behavior of the teacher continuously and sample that of the children. You can set the interval length here. And now we start an observation. When you click the recording button, the event log automatically shows rows for the first instantaneous sample. Simply start scoring the behaviors of the children. The event log automatically advances one row with each score you make. Between the samples, you score behaviors for the teacher continuously. If you score the video offline, there is no reason to play and wait for the next alert. With this button you can jump from one interval to the next and keep on scoring. At each moment that you need to score the children, you are alerted by a sound and the new rows for the sample appearing in the event log. Both the continuously and instantaneously scored data are visualized in one timeline, synchronous with the video. Also here you can jump between sample intervals. The Find functionality allows you to run queries on your observational data. If you have an observation opened, then selecting Edit Find from the menu will launch the Find window. For instance, retrieve all events where the child Abigail was scored with a behavior undetermined, to see if you need to fill in some additional information as a comment. Make a selection of the observations to include, if you like. Select or deselect individual observations or all of them at once, whichever works quickest. Click on Find to run the query. If you double-click a row, then the event log sets the focus of the matching row and the video jumps to the matching time, so that you can observe closely and edit the observation as needed. Abigail, the girl in the pink shirt, seems to hesitate to raise her hand, so we make a note of that in the comments field. In the comments field, you can enter text strings to search for. If you type words separated by spaces, then the query uses an OR logical statement. You can search for either fragments of comments or exact phrases by using quotes. Here the query retrieves all the events where the comment contains the word group. The results of your query can be copied to other software, such as Microsoft Excel, for analysis of, for instance, the text in the comment column. To select and copy the rows, right-click in the table to use the context menu, or press Ctrl-A and then Ctrl-C. Then paste the results where you want them. You have reached the end of this tutorial. For more information, please read the manual, or open the online help, or visit www.naldus.com.